Disclaimer. This program is about unsolved mysteries. Wrong disclaimer. This video is meant to be tongue-in-cheek. None of the narrators involved here are dead, nor are any of them in trouble. The deaths described by the narrators are completely hypothetical. Parts of this video may be more gruesome, and the language a little more severe than usual. So if you think you'll be offended, it might be better to just not listen. Because if you want something to bitch about, I'm sure you can find something a lot more interesting to complain about than a few friends having fun. Enjoy. The second death of Killer Orange Cat. It was one of those days. You know, you get up on the wrong side of the bed. Everything goes wrong. And you just tell yourself, damn it, I know I'm gonna die today. I was up on the second floor of the house. Little did I know, there was a skateboard sitting at the top of the stairs. I was too tired to notice it, and I stepped on the skateboard, and it rolled towards the stairs. But fortunately, I grabbed the banister and I was okay. Later, when I was pulling out of my garage, I thought that maybe I'd get into a car accident. Hell, that would really suck. I always had this fear that I would die in a car accident. Now, I didn't know this, but my next door neighbor had been out all night, and he got really, really wasted. In fact, he happened to be on his way home, and the timing put him on a direct collision course with me. Fortunately, though, the police had pulled him over and arrested him long before I left the house. But you know, if you're meant to die on a certain day, Death is going to do all he can to try and find you. And Death must have decided that the way I was going to die was during a bank robbery. You see, on my way to the bank, I was completely unaware that two gunmen were in the bank and holding the place up. If anyone walked through the door of the bank, the gunmen were prepared to shoot them dead on sight. But fortunately for me, I just used the ATM machine at the grocery store. Now, I haven't been watching the news very much since the presidential election last year. There was just so much negativity from both sides that it just killed politics for me. But by not watching the news, I completely missed the announcement that there was a recall on the toothpaste I had been using since I was a kid. Apparently, they were tainted, and several people who had brushed their teeth with it have died an awful and bloody, disgusting death. Fortunately for me, I'd switched brands a month beforehand. Yep, it was a strange day full of near misses. Most of them I didn't even know at the time. But I guess that's it. Oh wait, I didn't tell you how I died. Well, there was a wolverine in my bedroom closet and it mauled me. So I died, but you know what? It was pretty freaking cool to see an actual wolverine.
I've stared down this needle 1,000 times. Sometimes I'd wait for it to take a plunge into my papery skin. Sometimes I'd rush and thrust it deep into my veins. I tried to walk away from this road a long while ago, but that point at which I could have turned back has long since passed. My wife, the only woman I truly ever loved, died in a car crash. That didn't take both of our lives. Both of my parents are dead. I don't have a child to call my own, or a proper home. I've been living apartment to apartment. There's nothing left for me. Not even the liquid in this needle can bring me any more relief. I might as well go out with a bang. Taking some alcohol and robbing a convenience store should be enough to bring the cops rolling around. Hopefully they don't take too long. I want to make this quick. My old man's revolver should do the job nicely. Let's see how quickly I can make this bitch put up her hands. Put your hands in the air. This is a robbery. I want the bottle of Jack Daniels closest to the counter. Bring it here. And I want you to give me all the money in your register. And don't you even think about calling the cops, you worthless cunt. Yes, sir. That bitch is taking way too long. She probably pressed the emergency button a long while ago. She better pull the cash out faster. I can hear the sirens in the distance. I grabbed the cash out of her worthless hands and booked it. Good thing my car is still in working order. I have the perfect place in mind. Hopefully the cops can find me. I see lights in the distance. Time to let them know where I am. I fired off a few shots at the nearby trooper. Hopefully they'll give a pursuit. I want to make my end a scene. I'm coming up on the bridge. The railing still hasn't been repaired. I have the perfect clearing to send this baby down in the river. This is how I want it to go. Ride on till I die.
I can't move. My eyes open slowly to a vaguely unfamiliar ceiling. There is no light or shadow. It's unbearably quiet. Pure silence like I've never experienced before. I don't feel hot or cold. I can't move. Panic sets in as I realize I can't feel anything at all. I try to close my eyes again. They close slowly and out of sync as I try to remember what came before this. I can't remember anything. My mind broken as my synapses seem to be misfiring. Nothing comes together. The only coherent thought that forms is panic. I try to thrash about with no avail. In my head, I am wildly thrashing, trying to break this stillness, but my body doesn't follow suit. The panic grows, but I can't even feel my heartbeat. I try to take a deep breath to gain my composure, but my lungs fail to fill with air. I can't move. My body is completely numb. My head remains stagnant, my gaze remaining fixed on the ceiling I can't place. The ceiling is warped and torn, a dull gray. Despite my surroundings being so unfamiliar, I can't help but feel like I have been here before, that I have spent a lot of time here. There has to be a logical explanation for this. My head spins as I try to remember. What could make this overwhelming stillness make sense? I think to myself. It takes what feels like ages to form a thought, but I finally come to a conclusion. Sleep paralysis. Why didn't I think of that before? It makes perfect sense. My experience with sleep paralysis has always been abnormal. I never hear voices or see dark figures, as is typical. Sleep paralysis for me has always been just that, paralysis. I try to comfort myself with this, but my mind continues to race. It seems as if my brain is working 10 times harder just to form these simple conclusions. Nothing about this situation is making sense. If this is sleep paralysis, it is the most extreme experience I've ever had. Usually I can feel something, even the slightest bit. I can usually feel my body straining to move. I can usually move my head ever so slightly to break the spell. And I can usually make out hallucinations of phantom limbs teasing me into thinking I can move. Right now, though, I couldn't even see my body. I try again to move. Nothing. I can't move my head in any direction. My gaze is just stuck on this damn gray, twisted, unfamiliar ceiling. I don't even know what time of day it is. I can't move. Nothing, literally nothing, is all I can feel. Has your body ever felt absolute nothing? In most circumstances, you can usually feel something, anything. A heartbeat, a breath, even a slight pressure. No. Just nothing. My head isn't even working right. It's so fucking quiet. My thoughts fall back onto circumstances in which I would experience sleep paralysis. What else can I call this? It has to be a bad dream. Maybe if I could pinpoint the situation to one of these circumstances, my memory would return. I forced myself to recall usual situations where I typically experience sleep paralysis. Had I been taking a nap on the couch? No. Impossible. The ceiling didn't match up. Did I fall asleep in class? No. Something told me I hadn't been in school for a very long time. Plus, why would I be laying in such a strange position? Wouldn't I be looking at a desk face down? Wouldn't someone have woken me up or come to help me? Nothing is making sense, and it's just getting harder to think as my brain seems to be deteriorating. Am I waking up, or is it just a deeper sleep? Where am I? Why can't I move? Why is there no light, no dark, no sound? Nothing but the goddamn ceiling. Overwhelming nothingness. The unsettling sense that suddenly, I am no longer alone. And perhaps I wasn't alone this entire time. Why can't I remember? The sense triggers something inside me as my memories slowly begin to return. I had fallen asleep. I can't move. We couldn't get a hotel. A vaguely unfamiliar ceiling. We were supposed to split the driving, but he got sick. Where is he? There is no light or shadow. I just wanted to get home. It's unbearably quiet. I shouldn't have been driving. I don't feel hot or cold. I was just so tired I fell asleep and... A loud whirring begins to build in my ears. It's the first sound I've heard in what seems like hours. The sound engulfs me, as if the sound itself has feeling. The whirring becomes unbearable. It is unbearable, but it doesn't hurt. I can't pinpoint how exactly the sound is even bothering me. All I know is that I can't stand it. The sound floods the entirety of my being. I can move. As I realize I am slowly rising up. For a moment, I think I am going to be okay. That I can move again as I get up higher and higher. That is, until the scene pans out in front of me. Emergency vehicles everywhere. The flashing lights distorting as they hit my eyes. There is light and shadow. My boyfriend on a stretcher screaming, inconsolable, fighting against the restraints as they roll him into an ambulance. There he is. Why is he... It is unbearably loud. The world tilts sideways. My car comes into view, entangled with a guardrail. It seems impossible that a car and a guardrail could fuse together in such a way, making my car almost unrecognizable. There it is, the vaguely unfamiliar ceiling. The guardrail is going right through the driver's side windshield, where I should have been. I can't move. I don't feel hot or cold. I can't even feel my heartbeat. My lungs devoid of air. The whirring louder and louder and louder until nothing. It is once again unbearably quiet. A slow onset of darkness begins to close in around me. Panic sets in as I realize I'm looking at my decapitated body.
My name is Lila Whitefeather. I'm lost out here in the woods. I found this cabin, but I don't think it was by accident, and I feel it won't be safe here for much longer. I don't know what's happening. I seem to be losing all sense of time, but from what I can remember, these giant men-like beasts attacked my tribe, killing everyone in their path. I fear I'm the last of my tribe. I remember my Nana telling me of the legend of the Skinwalkers. She would talk about this group from our tribe that practiced the witchery way and lived out in the woods surrounding us. One night they came and killed their loved ones to seal their fates as skinwalkers. She would go on to tell us to stay out of the woods. I never believed her. I thought they were all stories. But I was wrong. So very wrong. I can hear them coming. Their howls echo through the woods. I can't even tell how close they are now. The only light in this cabin is from the flashes of lightning. I hear sounds from the windows and the walls. What is it? The door flies from its hinges with immense force. And in the entryway stands a 7-foot man-like beast. A skinwalker. I didn't even see it move. All I felt was sharp teeth ripping through my flesh and warm blood spilling out from the open wounds. The creature paused for a few moments to see if I was still alive, and then continue, pulling one of my arms from the socket. The pain, but it didn't stop there. It decided that all of my extremities need to be pulled from my body. I couldn't understand why I was still alive. I begged for death. And then finally, there was nothing. And I finally realized I didn't survive. I am cursed to wander these woods, angry, alone, and scared, to warn others like you, so you don't meet the same fate as me.
You never think about what it would be like at the end of the road. You wouldn't be able to until it happens. I always thought I'd go out with a bang. I thought it would be epic and everyone would remember me. But that's not what happened at all. It's pathetic, and I will have to live my afterlife knowing that no one will remember me. My loved ones might remember me. They will remember me for the drunken idiot I was. I was driving to my friend's house trying to live my life to the fullest. I tried hard every day to make sure I did everything I could for a new experience. But I guess when you live by YOLO, you die solo. My friend was just as crazy as I was. We were pretty nuts. This kept us alive since everything else we imagined was boring. We wanted excitement, and we were willing to do just about anything to get it. We didn't want to harm anyone else or be bad people. Just we wanted to do things that made us happy. We were free spirits, and no one could tell us that we were wrong. As long as we didn't do anything wrong to anyone, we were golden. So we were bolting down the highway, heading towards a new goal. Today we were ramp jumping on motorbikes. We could just barely squeeze it in today as a final thought of the night. We would hang it up after that because we were both getting pretty tired. Well, we had our little adventure, and we started to head home. I dropped off my friend at his house, and told him tomorrow was his day to do the driving and paying. We switched off every other day. One day I'd drive and pay for everything. The next day he would. It was something we agreed on when we were kids, so that when we were adults we wouldn't fight about money and who would pay for what. I started towards my home, which was in the next city. I had to get up on the highway to get home, and up there were drivers just as crazy as I was. I picked up speed and jotted down the road. I noticed my car was getting a little bumpy with the shocks. I slowed down a bit, since I actually did care about my safety, but I had a little ways to go. About halfway into my drive next to an exit, a small car got on the highway and decided it was going to swerve all over the road. I backed off, deciding this guy was a little too dangerous. I could see a small light in the car's back windshield. This guy was texting and driving. That's one thing I can't stand. I was going to get near his window and tell him to put his phone down. So I sped up and got really close to his window. And that's when he sped up. Alright, so this guy was going to be an asshole. He probably thought I wanted to race or something. I wasn't in the mood to race, but I continued my pursuit. I got really close to his window, and he floored it again. I told myself I'd try one more time, and then I'd back off. Well, when I did, things took a turn for the worst. I got up to speed in the lane next to him. I pulled the car in gear to get a huge burst of speed to get next to him. But the dumbass did something I could never forgive him for. He pulled his car over in my lane, so that he was in front of me while I was speeding up to him. He then proceeded to slam on his brakes. Please forgive me for what I'm about to describe to you, because it could scar you for life. I hit the back of his vehicle doing about 120 to a dead stop. My car stopped, and my seatbelt snapped out of its harness. The force sent me flying. I didn't feel the impact of the windshield, but I knew I hit it. I saw the windshield shatter around me, like coming up out of the water for a fresh breath of air. I heard wind. I passed over the car I'd hit, and at that moment, everything seemed to go in slow motion. My life didn't flash before my eyes or anything. I may have been going in slow motion, but I still didn't have time to think about that. As I flew through the air, it was like seeing the world pass by me as if I wasn't moving. The wind, I believe, was the last thing I heard before the ground came up really fast. As soon as I hit the asphalt, I lost my vision. I felt as if I were tumbling in a dryer. I didn't feel much pain, just the tumbling. The motion made me sick to my stomach, as did the thought of what was happening in the first place. I stopped tumbling and began sliding. This is what hurt. The slower I went, the more it hurt. I felt all my bones began to ache, and then get worse. My entire body started to burn, and it felt like a billion burning knives were stabbing me all at once. I knew what this meant. It meant I was going to die. Was I dead already, and I was just still feeling it? I don't know. I was blind, and in so much pain my brain wouldn't even let me think. Something happened after that, though. The pain just suddenly stopped. I was free. I knew at that moment I had died. I welcomed it. Anything would have been better than living and being in that much pain. I've had time to think about all this. I don't know where I am. It's dark, and there doesn't seem to be anyone else here. I can't move or breathe, but I don't think I need to. I thought about who I was in my life and my policy on living it. It disgusts me looking back, and there's nothing I could do to fix any of that. It is the way it's going to be forever. I had fun in my life, but in my quest to have fun, I did end up hurting so many people. I know my family and friends grieve over me, but seeing the kind of person I was, they'll get over it. And they'll live their lives. I don't claim to know better or have any advice for the afterlife, but I'm certain I was wrong. My only advice to anyone is this: live your life without hurting anyone. If you think you might hurt someone, or even yourself, don't do it. Don't help where help is not needed, and always think about how your actions affect others. These things boil down to the quality of your life. If you do these things, your life will not end in turmoil. If you don't heed my advice, your actions can come back to haunt you.
My life was never supposed to be anything special. I wanted to live my life, make an impact, no matter how big or small it was, and then leave in peace. But as anyone who knows me personally, peace and normality are never a given. I remember what happened so vividly that night I was supposed to have died. I was at a party for my daughter's wedding, having given my son-in-law permission to take the hand of my daughter. He was a good boy, one that I felt at the time I could trust. I had made the wedding a private affair in my hometown. Many of my friends from around the world happened to make it to wish my daughter and her new husband well in their new journey they were about to embark on in their lives. As my wife and I were about to leave the location at which we had the celebration, 2 unmarked vehicles drove in the front of the location, and several marked men began to gun down everyone in sight. I was struck first and fell to the ground. I saw everyone else behind me fall to the ground as the bullets from their automatic rifles fired off. In that moment, I wanted to do something, anything to stop them. But the 3 bullets that had made their marks on my torso drove me to the ground, and I couldn't pull out my gun in time. As soon as I hit the ground, I was out cold. I awoke being wheeled into the hospital, fighting blurred senses while weary of the situation. I was the first to be hit, but I knew in my heart that everyone else had been hit as well. I asked the nurse and the doctor, who were in charge of caring for me as soon as I was awake, if they were okay, but I could not get a response from any of them. I waited the nurse's arrival and for the news of my family having passed to arrive, but it never seemed to come. I waited for what felt like hours, and no one arrived. I closed my eyes and tried my best not to think about everything that had happened, try and release myself from the stress that I was going through, but I could never seem to find that relief. That was until they brought in the machine. See, before being put into the Ethernet, I had founded a company that had revolutionized how we view technology. I created a form of technology that made the use of cables to transfer electricity obsolete, and the entire world quickly found themselves adopting the technology, developed and developing countries alike. The technology brought myself and my family great amounts of wealth, an amount I could never truly understand the scale of. But with great power comes great risk of someone wanting to take what you have created, and that was what ended up taking my life, or at least ended up killing my body. There was an experimental form of artificial intelligence we had designed to function as a real-world simulation, and we were in the final stages of perfecting the technology before the shooting took place. As soon as the word had been sent to my longtime colleague and acting CEO of my company of the circumstances that had happened, he immediately sent out the final prototype of the Ethernet and had my consciousness implanted in it. It was a last-ditch effort to save my life, and one that I did not have enough time to think or do anything to stop. The machine was placed on my head, and in what felt like just a mere moment, my consciousness was sent through what felt like a long tube and into the Ethernet. I stood in a room that had surrounded pixels, and electric static quietly dancing across the vast edges of the room. I walked towards the screen door that I had watched my lead software engineer Vincent create. It appeared to me like a glass panel, but was entirely made out of light. It read at the top of the display, "Welcome to the Ethernet." The panel revealed a few dials and allowed me to pick out some options for myself before I entered the simulation. Once I had made the choices for my appearance and what setting I wanted to be placed in, the static and pixels floated around me had vanished, and the world appeared in front of me. The only difference between the real world and the one I was in was that the city I was in, there were no people. The system was built around creating a home for all humans once they were about to pass, and I returned back to the city of Houston, back to where my company began. I walked and roamed the streets, passing by many various buildings and intersecting roads that zigzagged their way through the Houston metro area. I walked down a few blocks before arriving in front of what was supposed to be my company headquarters. I made my way inside and made my way up to the top of the building. I was never the CEO, but I was one of the co-founders of my company, and had the same right to the top office as my longtime partner and friend. I sat down in the central office chair and turned on the built-in screen that was built into the desk. First thing I decided to do was call the same office phone to see if the call would go through to my partner's office in the real world. The phone line was dead. I began to cycle through the messaging systems and look through the simulation system settings to see if there was any way to get in touch with my partner. Eventually, I came across a setting that would allow me to communicate with those outside of the simulation. I first messaged my partner. "Hey, oh my god, it actually worked. You're alive." "Yeah, I just don't know why they sent only me." My partner fell silent after a couple of minutes as he took his time before sending his next message. "They never told you about what happened, did they?" This was the one phrase I dreaded. It sounded far too cliche coming from my partner for him to say that, but I knew he did not want to be the bearer of bad news. "Your family, they're all dead, Nathan. None of the doctors could save them or you. The bullets they found in your body were laced with a form of poison. They found ricin in your bloodstream and on the bullets." This message hit me in waves. I could not fathom the idea of someone not only planning out my murder, but making sure that anyone who was struck with a bullet did not survive. Worse yet, part of me suspected who could have done such a thing to me and my family. I was never one to waste time with formalities and dancing around subject matters. They used bullets laced with ricin? Why would they try to kill my family with such cruel measures? Why didn't they just go for me? We're still trying to investigate who could have been involved in this, but so far everyone who was found is dead. The end of that statement made me lunge forward at the screen and quickly message him my response. "What do you mean by that? Are you meaning to tell me that not everyone was found? Who's missing?" Again, he hesitated in returning a response to me. After a few minutes, he replied, "We found everyone except for your daughter and her new husband. Nathan, Hazel, and Justin are missing." I continued to try and rack my brain as to why this could have happened. It made no sense that if everyone was targeted, that they would escape. I tried to think of what could possibly be the reason they couldn't find my daughter and son-in-law. Did anyone see them leave? Did anyone take the bodies with them? No, they didn't take any bodies. Our current hope is that they escaped the line of fire and that they are safe. That was not enough for me. I was not content with uncertainty, not while I was alive, and not while I am dead. That isn't good enough. Where are they? Where have they last been seen? We have nothing for now. In the meantime, try to relax and explore the situation. Come back and send me messages as to the progress within the Ethernet. I saw his icon go offline after that. There was nothing else I could say to him, and nothing he would reply to. Whenever my partner goes offline, that is because he is being troubled far too much to talk. I had not seen him like this in years, but then again, I was still alive when that happened, and now I was left to my own resources to roam the Ethernet. The system was capable of everything. The Ethernet could simulate the entire world and worlds beyond it, and I had all of the power at my disposal to explore it. In this world, I had the ability to teleport and be anywhere at any time, and that's exactly what I did. I first went to the Great Wall of China, as I much admired great wondrous structures like that, and ran along the stone steps of the wall. After I was satisfied there, I set myself in Sicily, Italy. I made my way down the stone streets and traversed around the city. After spending 30 minutes there, I traveled to Paris, France, and made my way through the catacombs. However, as I was making my way down there, I began to feel the air grow thick as I neared the end of one of the tunnels. It was faint in the pitch dark, so I had the program simulate a ball of light above me, and I could see the edge of the simulation, just a foot away from me. When I was alive, I told my partner to make sure that the software engineers programmed a failsafe to ensure that no one would try to leave through the boundaries, so the air begins to vibrate around any unmapped area where the simulation does not exist. Crossing over into it completely will knock you out and reset the system. We included a slight tingling sensation of pain to deter anyone from sticking part of their body, let alone their entire body, in it. I stepped away from the edge and warped myself back to the office to leave a message log for my partner. He responded back after an hour of waiting. "That's great news! I'm glad those precautions worked out well. Try and make yourself something to eat. Or don't. You don't have to do any of those things anymore. Lucky bastard." I actually laughed at that comment. Even while I was dead, my partner could still get a laugh out of me. I went down into the kitchen and had the simulation simulate the finest ingredients for me. I made myself a creamy shrimp pasta and made my way back up to the top office. I had the simulation load up an entertainment segment outfitted with game consoles and television and a large-sized king bed on the opposite side of the room. I sat down and began to watch some of the news channels from the real world as I enjoyed my pasta. I continued to see headlines like, "Co-founder of Dynamo Killer still at large." Bounties were being placed by several police departments to find the killers. It was a shame I couldn't give them anything but a license plate. Their faces were hidden, and there were no symbols that I could recognize on their body. I continued to flip through the channels until I saw one of the more radical news channels pushing a story bordering on the level of insanity. "Son-in-law of the famous entrepreneur Nathan Willis may be connected to the murder." I turned off the television and finished up my pasta. I immediately simulated nighttime outside of the window and curled up in bed. I tried to shut the thoughts out of my son-in-law possibly being the murderer out of my head. But once it was in my mind, I could not let it go. I woke the next morning and continued my explorations. I made stops in the Caribbean, in Brazil, in Australia, and in Antarctica. I made my way back to the office and made sure to send my daily log to my partner. He responded rather quickly this time and told me something that startled me. "I'm being hunted, Nathan. I'm going into hiding. One of my associates was found dead this morning, and 2 of my employees were shot in a drive-by shooting right outside of our main office. I think I'm being targeted. The same people who murdered my family were now after my lifelong partner. Get out of there, Drew. Stay safe." I tried to rest my head and went to the kitchen to make myself dinner. I made myself fried chicken and some french fries and made my way back upstairs. I spent some time watching random television shows until I came across one of the news channels and nearly dropped my food when I heard one of the headlines. "Hazel Willis was found dead after being caught in a shooting. Her husband, Justin, managed to survive and has a statement for us." I waited anxiously to hear what he had to say. The reporter did the normal rundown and began to ask how he felt about losing his wife. Justin responded just as I expected him to. "I am completely devastated over what happened, and I want to find the people who murdered my wife and family and bring them to justice." Another reporter came in with news about how my partner was being hidden for his safety and that his location would be kept a secret to the public. I finished my food and turned on one of the video game systems and tried to drown out my worries in some of the games, but I ended up turning off the system after 20 minutes of playing games on it. I readied myself for bed and closed my eyes once I tucked myself in. I couldn't stand what was happening, and from beyond the Ethernet, I was almost powerless to stop any of it. For the first time since the murders began, I began to cry. I wept that my family was gone, that my beautiful daughter was murdered, and that I would never see them again, even within the Ethernet. They only created one working headset and decided that I was the most important person to use it on. The guilt and pain I felt began to weigh down on me. I was allowed to continue on in some form of life while they had been extinguished. All of their memories and knowledge of who they were now gone forever. I eventually fell asleep in tears of regret and pain. No matter what, I still feel regret having outlived my children, even if mortally I was dead. I awoke the next day and tried to communicate with my partner again, but he did not respond. I chalked it up to him being unable to communicate with anyone within his safe location and went about exploring more of the world. I traveled to all of the monuments that I wanted to see and simulated a bubble so I could dive beneath the waves and explore the large coral reefs north of Australia. I made my way home later this time after experiencing and seeing so much and went to go and write down my message log as usual. But this time, I got a response back from someone other than my partner. Hey Nathan, this is Justin. They left me in charge of the office since old Drew was found dead in a private estate. I wasted no time in asking Justin questions. Who killed him? What was found on his body? Are you okay, Justin? What is going on? He took a long time to write what he was going to write, and every moment he wrote filled me deeper and deeper with dread, almost pouring over like a boiling pot of water. Drew was found dead, having been shot with bullets laced with ricin. The board of trustees entrusted me with the company as the last owner of the stocks and instated me as the new acting CEO of Dynamo. No one from our family was found alive, and the whole ordeal has taken a lot out of me, so I'm pulling out of business. I'm going to sell the company for all it's worth to one of the largest companies for the largest amount we can, and I'm going to sell my vitamin company as well. I'm done with business, Nathan. I just can't do anything anymore. But think about what happened. This was a lot to take in, but I tried to sort through this the best that I could. I'm sure there are people who could give you advice on how to run the company if you gave them a chance. Give yourself some time to try. Give yourself some time and try to come back to the business later. Who are you going to sell it to? We're selling it to a company that is going to buy out all of our patents and absorb Dynamo. They also stated in our new contract that we have to shut down all existing experimental projects. That also includes the Ethernet. I'm sorry, Nathan. This was not making any sense to me. How could someone I saw as being almost as successful as me in business be so willing to sell it all and throw it all away? Justin, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Because I can, Nathan. I'm doing this because I can. My mind went blank. I was beginning to fill with both anger and confusion, both sides battling to try and make sense of what was happening and what exactly Justin was planning. What are you planning, Justin? His response was one that only someone full of contempt and pride could send. I'm going to put you through so much pain and torture up until the day that this system closes and you die. Why? I responded with that simple word, hoping it would garner a reason that made sense. And I received a response, but it was not the one I wanted to hear. I'm doing this because you never said you would sign the shares of the company over to me when you died. You were going to give everything to your only daughter, and you never cared about anyone else. You never thought about who else could need the money. My company was about to go bankrupt, Nathan, but now I'll have enough money to pay off my debts and retire in luxury, and I have the perfect gang to ensure my protection for decades to come. You remember how I told you my suppliers made all of their products? What do you think is a byproduct of castor oil? I became enraged and started to sob. You won't get away with this! I'll have the authorities on you before you can do anything! He responded rather quickly to me, but carried with it all of the compassion of a psychopath. Do you really think that you can reach out to anyone else? As far as the public is concerned, the Ethernet doesn't even exist. I'm shutting off this account and leaving you to perish, but not after I do one last thing. And what is that, Justin? I want you to suffer unrelenting agony until the program shuts down and you perish. As soon as that message was sent, the simulation began to fade and I was placed inside of a white room. There was nothing but white padding in all four corners of the walls, and the air was vibrating violently around me from all sides. It was the same painful vibration I felt when I was down in the catacombs, only this time every movement I made caused a shockwave of pain to be sent through my body. The simulation began showing images of the night my family was murdered and played a clip of what happened to my daughter, Hazel. I knew now what Justin had planned for me. He was going to torture and kill my consciousness from within a box. Once the program closed, the ever-consuming vibrations from the walls would close, crushing me in an instant, forcing my consciousness into a singularity and ending me in less than the blink of an eye. I wrote down this log, even though it will likely mean nothing. All anyone will likely find from the simulation is one of the earlier programs or the text files that were gathered from my time in here. But if this file does make it out, I ask that Justin pay for his crimes and that you be wary of him now that you know what happened to me. My pain and suffering will be eternal, but if someone finds this note, at least it will not have been in vain. In this afterlife, within these walls closing on me, I finally find peace, knowing that I am gone like my family and will remain forever dead.
Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. My first order of business is to thank Hitch Hiker, Selestial Norre, BlackEyed Blonde, Lillie C Nation, and Raener Lewington for taking place in this collaboration with me. I've included links to all their channels in the description, and I hope you'll check out their channels and subscribe. This was a lot of fun working with them, and I think this turned out great. Thanks everyone. I also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has either donated to my friend Jerry's GoFundMe campaign or has shared the link on social media. We were able to raise over 10% of the goal within one day. This has touched both Jerry and myself immensely. So, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I am including the link here for the campaign and will update in future videos. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please hit the subscribe button below, or use the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave a comment to let me know what you thought of the video, and maybe share it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. But for now, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.